When I first started making the Sakura Wars franchise retrospective videos, I did them with the express intent of avoiding the 2019 reboot and its corresponding side material. I was extremely disappointed by the game and felt insulted, as it was essentially a big spit in the face to everything that the original series stood for. It's now been 3 years since that original video, and my editing and writing has gotten significantly better, and I think my opinions have overall mellowed out quite significantly. So now that I'm finally doing it, having replayed the game and gone through the side material for the first time, I can safely say that Sakura Wars 2019 is one of the worst RPGs I've ever had the displeasure of playing. Usually for these videos I try to have a lot of notes ready and form my own script on the fly as I'm recording the audio, but that's not happening in this segment. I'll do that for every other segment in this video, but for this game in particular, I don't think I would be capable of using a pseudo script to guide myself without constantly interrupting myself every other minute. So instead, this is going to be more of a stream of consciousness. If you'd rather just skip to the conclusion, then feel free to go to the timestamp on screen. This game was supposed to be the grand return of the franchise, 11 years after the last release in the series, Dramatic Dungeon on DS. I was excited, so as you could imagine, I pre-ordered that shit instantly. I wish I hadn't. Let's just start with the story. The game is set in Taisha 29, as in 1940, which is 12 years after Sakura Wars 5, and already something bothers me. I'd just like to point out that the Taisho period lasted from 1912 to 1926, with Sakura Wars 5 taking place in the late 1920s. By this point in time, we should be in the Showa era. We aren't, because the older games were set in the Taisho era, so this one needed to be as well. The whole point of the older games being set in the Taisho period was because there was an era where all female theater troops were starting to become a thing. By this point in the timeline, it's already a well-established thing all over the world, as we'll see later, and the technology used in this game is much closer to that we have nowadays than the steampunk machines we saw in the older games. They just run off of steam instead of electricity. If you wanted to set the games later down the timeline, then sure, go for it, but at least try to have a point to it and tie into it thematically. This alone tells me that none of the staff actually gave a shit about what they were working on, which is made even more evident by the fact that only a single staff member from the original team returned or was even consulted, that being composer Koei Tanaka. And this music is the only thing keeping me sane throughout this video. The story is such a fucking mess, dude. The overarching narrative alone is a giant pile of shit. Let's talk about the characters first though. So the main character is one Seijiro Kamiyama. Ogami in the first game was very bland, but in all subsequent entries he really came into his own and became a great character in his own right. Kamiyaka on the other hand is just flat out fucking unlikable. He never does anything particularly noteworthy, and his entire identity is tied to being childhood friends with this game's poster girl Sakura Mamiya. And honestly, one of the least bad parts of this game is her. She's the only character in the game to actually get any development at all, whereas everyone else has a personality that boils down to a single defining character trait, and that's it. Azami, for instance, is defined entirely by her being a ninja girl. It's extremely irritating when the older games equally fleshed out each and every character, giving them their own dedicated chapters and everything. What makes it even worse is that the original games were explicitly social sims. Romance was almost completely irrelevant up until the 4th game, though 5 also leans into it quite a bit. But because of this, building up your relationships with everyone was a matter of learning to know them better, and they were written excellently because of that. Meanwhile, this game is just flat out a dating sim, and they demand you end up with a Mamiya because she's Kamiyama's childhood friend, and that's already 10 times more development than anyone else ever gets. And then there's the absolutely dogshit overarching narrative of this game. The older games had 2 very basic ideas at the core of each and every one of its story. The first is that teamwork is based, and the second is that self-sacrifice is cringe. So how do they write the old cast out of the plot? They sacrificed themselves to save the world and got trapped in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shadow Realm. And they want to make sure you know for a fact that they're not dead, because one of the main villains, Yaksha, is an evil shadow clone of Sakura Shinguji. Doesn't help that this entire fucking plot string gets left entirely unresolved at the end of the game. Great, just wonderful. Let's throw everything the older games were about out the window. Now, one of the old cast members does return, being Sumire, the only character who canonically retired, so she at least has a reason for not being trapped in Shadow Realm. She's the reason for the new squad being formed in the first place, and so half of the plot is about trying to save the old cast from the Shadow Realm. Spoiler alert, they don't do that. She's Sumire in name only, and nothing about her belongs in this game whatsoever. Let's talk about the other half of the plot. While everyone from the older games is busy being literally trapped in hell, half the game is a giant anime tournament arc. There's this stupid fucking competition between combat reviews from across the world called the Combat Review World Games, and it's the stupidest fucking thing ever. For one, none of the characters have any fucking personality whatsoever, and that alone would be bad enough, but there is an even bigger issue here. This game is a visual fucking atrocity. They did not bring back Kosuke Fujishima as the character designer. Why? Because fuck you, that's why. So instead the main cast is designed by Tite Kubo, the guy behind Bleach. Personally, I hate Bleach, but if it was just him, I could live with that, but nope. This game also needed a total of 6 separate guest artists who designed the characters, including one for every separate combat review. They did not attempt to adjust anyone's art styles for a unified 3D aesthetic either, and so, you have an unbearable visual style that puts fucking Xenoblade 2 of all things to shame. These characters should not be in the same game as each other. So that's the awful story and the character's done. What did they do to the gameplay? They fucked it up, of course, that's what. The idea of teamwork was woven directly into combat in the older games. As an SRPG, you have direct control over all of your units, and depending on your actions in combat, you can raise your relationships with the squad. Your relationship with them in social sim segments also fed back into the combat, affecting their stats. It's a really clever mechanic that was made even better with the arm system in 3. Here though, they decided that it would be a good idea to turn the game into a muso, but not the good kind of muso. Instead, it's a fucking button masher, and you have one, count them, one party member with you at all times. So all of the nuance from the original system is gone. In conclusion, I fucking hate this game so much. Every design decision in it is explicitly made to piss anyone off who liked the original games, and I fucking had it. I'm glad to see that the Japanese audiences agreed with me that the game is terrible, but in the West, unfortunately that wasn't the case at all. This game is enjoyable only to people with a complete and utter lack of the ability to read subtext, such as Persona fans or Trails of Cold Steel fans. And I assure you, if you've ever met someone who likes Shin Sakura Wars, then they also at least like one of those two games. It completely abandons the identity of the older games and falls into every same trapping of bad writing and game design as those two series. If you like them, then sure, you might love Shin Sakura Wars, but to me, this is an insult to the work of each and everyone who worked on the original series. If this game was all it had been, then sure, I could have lived with it, but unfortunately, they tried to make this into a multimedia series, and so this video is still far from over. God help me. A week after the game released, they also released a novel that serves as a prequel surrounding Sumire and how she put the cast together. This shit cost me $25, shipping not included, and it ended up being one of the most dull things I've ever read. The dialogue is offensively cheesy, with a lot of scenes being the most stereotypical anime shit imaginable. I'd raise my voice at the idea that a series that repeatedly broke traditional conventions playing fully into them, but I just don't have the nerves anymore. It tries hard to earn brownie points by copying scenes from older material like Sakura Mamiya copying Shuniguchi's training in the Oka Kenran OVA, but all it got out of me is an eye rolling. On the same day as the novel, they also released the first 3 volumes of a manga that serves as an adaptation of the game, and honestly, this one is significantly more enjoyable than the game. It's much more concise, trimming a lot of the filler and making the atrocious pacing a lot more bearable. The art is also inoffensive and much better looking than the game, since there's no insane art style clash every 5 minutes. They did change some plot points here and there, but at its core it's still the abysmal plot of the game, and no matter how many minor alterations you make, you can't fix it without a complete rewrite. Some months after the game's Japanese release, they then also started airing an anime that serves as a sequel to the game. Now, I hate the game, but the show is somehow even worse. Writing-wise, the plot is just as bad as the game, with the issues regarding the complete lack of good character writing applying to every single new addition to the anime as well. But what impresses me even more is that they managed to translate even more of the game's issues into an anime. The art style clash is as present as it ever was, but it is made even worse by the fact that some scenes have 2D characters and CG characters in the same fucking shot. It's insanely jarring. What's even more jarring is how lazy I got almost all the time. There's a scene in the first episode where they show the silhouettes of the old cast, and instead of animating anything new, they just obscure the scene from the end of the opening of Sakura Wars 4. They also tried to copy a lot of subplots and elements from the older shows and OVAs, but without any of the writing to make them work. And much like the game, this anime also ends on a fucking cliffhanger. I really can't tell who this was made for, man. Technically speaking, this is the last thing they ever put out for the main series Sakura Wars, but there's one last thing. The mobile game Sakura Kakumei. I'm not gonna go deeply into it because this is actually not playable anymore. They shut it down after just 6 months because it was one of the biggest financial failures in the history of Sega. This game cost them 3 billion yen or 20 million USD to make, and it didn't even make back a small fraction of this. It was a complete dumpster fire for gacha mobile game RPG. I personally only played a bit of it back when it was available, but it was awful. Its gacha mechanics were extremely predatory, the combat was as snore-fast, the story and writing were awful, and the thing ran horribly. Even on a higher end phone, it would run at what felt like 15 FPS. It was set in an alternate reality to the main series, but also simultaneously in the future, and instead of the Kobu just being mechs, they're like power armor now. I'm just happy that it failed so horribly, because that means that they'll probably never try anything like this again, hopefully. Now, despite the game shutting down, there's still one last thing to discuss. Before the game was released, they put out a small prequel OVA, and wow, this is bad. Not as bad as the anime, but it gets close. Despite being only 20 minutes long, it has terrible animations, completely nonsensical decision making from the characters, and genuinely bad music. This OVA is just flat out terrible, both as a standalone OVA and as a prequel to the mobile game. It doesn't even exist anymore. Just don't bother with this one, even if just out of morbid curiosity. It's not worth it. And thus concludes quite possibly the most negative video I've ever made. I don't enjoy ranting like this, I really don't, but everything about new Sakura Wars just genuinely pisses me off. It completely misrepresents what the original series was about, introduced a bunch of people who don't care about the legacy of the originals to a bastardized version of it, and hopefully killed itself as soon as it came. I hope we'll never get another new Sakura Wars game or something of the sort again, because it's clear to me that Sega fundamentally doesn't understand its own series. But even if they do make a new one, I can safely tell you that I won't be going anywhere near it. Sakura Wars started in 1996 and ended in 2008, with the only thing since being the second half of the manga adaptation of the first game. Or at least that's what I choose to believe. But with that, I have now covered every single piece of Sakura Wars core media that I know of, bringing this 4-year ongoing video series to a close. To all who watched these videos from the first one and watched me improve in my video making since, thank you, and I wish you all a wonderful morning, day, evening, or night. Cheers.